Want to welcome you. I'm Don Zimmerman from NetApp, and we are honored to be the sponsor for Theater 3. Before we begin, I just want to ask you all to thank the gentleman who has made the audiovisual responsible for all of this. The gentleman's name is Novi. He's the one who's hiding right there in the back. And it's been flawless support, Novi. Novi has provided presidential support at undisclosed locations. So he comes to us with great credentials, and I just want to thank you, sir, for all of your support. So on behalf of TechNet Cyber and AFCEA, this morning we are discussing cloud acceleration and adoption, a deep dive into DoD IAC infrastructure as code, and CAS, Containers as a Service. Our panelists this morning are David Lago and H.C. Su. NetApp is pleased to sponsor these Theater 3 panels, and just as DISA is transforming itself into a software-first service provider, so NetApp has also made that transition. In fact, a few years ago, we internalized that transition by infrastructure as code and containers as a service integrations that have resulted in a 10x increase in CI/CD processes and our ability to take our billions of lines of code that go into our operating system software ONTAP and be able to produce products now in versions even faster, would you believe, than our customers are asking for. They've asked us to throttle back a little bit because of these CAS and IAC integrations that we've made. Mr. David Lago is the product owner of the Cloud Infrastructure as a Code product for the hack at DISA. In this role, Mr. Lago manages the development of a baseline template that helps mission customers rapidly adopt the latest cloud technology by significantly decreasing deployment assessment and authorized timelines. Prior to this role, Mr. Lago served as the civilian in the Office of Naval Intelligence for 5 years, leading cloud and DevOps initiatives. He has 13 years of experience as a contractor with Booz Allen and other consulting firms supporting various defense customers on a mission systems deployment, security, IT strategy, and enterprise architecture. H.C. Su currently serves as a cloud platform engineer for the DISA hack. In this role, he assists as the technical lead for the Containers as a Service, or CAS project, as well as the DoD IAC project. With these projects, Mr. Su provides mission owners with singularized, containerized web servers that can be configured, deployed, and patched, as well as pre-configured, pre-authorized cloud infrastructure baselines to help accelerate cloud adoption. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished panelists.
Great. Good morning, everybody. I want to thank AFCEA and NetApp here for hosting the session this morning. As Don said, I'm Dave Lago. I'm from the Hosting and Compute Center. I'm a product manager there. I've got here with me Mr. H.C. Su. Feel like we're kind of moving up a little bit in the AFCEA world. We started last year. We had the 8 a.m. session. Now we're at 10:30 in the theater, so I'm excited about that. A little bit about the Hosting and Compute Center. Next slide, please. All right, so the Hosting and Compute Center, we're all about providing the best value of compute and storage, whether that's on-premise, in the commercial cloud, or both for hybrid cloud computing. I'd like to highlight 3 offerings here today. The first one is the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability, JWCC. This is the DoD-wide cloud contract, right? Unless you've been living under a rock for the last 4 years, you're probably aware of this one. In fact, that great aunt you have is going to corner you at Thanksgiving about this every year. True story. And then we're going to talk about DoD Cloud IAC. These are templates that build out secure cloud environments in hours instead of years, how it sometimes takes. And they were also highlighted in the keynote by General Skinner and Mr. Wallace on Tuesday, which I'm pretty excited about. And then we're going to talk about containers as a service. There's another offering from the hack. And why do containers matter? Well, containers, I think of them as a gateway, to the cloud. They could be the stairway to the cloud, if you like that reference better, but however you want to describe it. So a good step towards adopting the cloud is getting some of your workloads into a container. And HC is going to talk about that here today. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'd say if we, Department of Defense, kind of looked at ourselves in the mirror, I think we'd say, commercial cloud adoption is probably not where we'd like it to be today, right? And part of that reason, quite frankly, is that it's really hard, okay? There is a whole bunch of complex engineering and compliance work that has to go on upfront before you can put anything in the cloud, right? And for some customers, that cloud journey is literally a journey, and it's taking them years. And we found that customers are using their resources, the cloud resources they have, and what they're doing is they're building a mission landing zone, that underlying environment, kind of like again and again and again across all the Department of Defense. And that's detracting from what really matters, which is getting their mission applications into the cloud, right? Getting their data into the cloud, not building another platform. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we DoD did this one time for the entire department and got an ATO and common controls from DISA RME, and that's what we did. And if you think about this from just the common controls part, right? That body of evidence that was required to create those baselines, it was about 1,000 pages. So that's 1,000 pages of body of evidence that your team doesn't have to do, as you move into the cloud. All right, we have baselines for AWS, for Azure, and we're finalizing our Google baseline here at the end of the month. Would like to thank the cloud providers for their support as well. We couldn't have gotten here without it. I also see our integrator, Alaska North Star, is here as well. Appreciate your support. So some key points here on the baseline itself, right? So there are, the focus here are managed services, right, from the cloud providers, right? And the reason being is that we're transitioning a lot of that responsibility that you see in the chart here in IaaS that was formerly on the mission partner, we're transitioning that to the cloud service provider, right? So they have to do a lot of the middleware integration, right? They have to do the middleware integration, they have to do the patching, they have to do the hardening. That responsibility falls on them. What happens if we do that? We can move a lot faster, right? And that is the goal of DevOps. Another great point about using managed services is technology insertion, right? So we're always talking about DoD, being behind, or certain parts of technology not embracing it fast enough. This is a great opportunity for DoD to leverage some of the innovation that's being done. There are managed service offerings for just about everything: application hosting, database hosting, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, quantum computing. If you can think of a service, gaming, there's probably a managed service either already available or on its way. So we want to make those available to our customers, to allow them to benefit from all this innovation. And then the last point, global directory. So I'm sure that the conference up to this point has been kind of like a drinking game on zero trust. And I'm sure that that's come up again and again. And a key tenet to zero trust is identity, right? And so we have built-in integration with DISA's ICAM effort, global directory specifically, that you can set up application level authentication, CAC authentication in minutes using this baseline. All right, so we've done 21 deployments. So as part of these deployments, customers bring their cloud accounts, we build their cloud accounts, and move on. And we've done 21 of those across the Department of Defense, different components, all the military services, combatant commands, and but the one that really I think was the biggest success and showed the most promise of the cloud was Blue Heron. So as part of the Blue Heron effort, Transcom Air Mobility Command worked with DoD CIO IE and the DISA hack and MITRE, and they built a command and control system in 16 days with 3 FTE and to support the Afghan evacuation effort. So if you think about that for a minute, that's a really big deal, right? In the Department of Defense, command and control capabilities take years to develop and deploy. So how did they move so fast, right? Well, there's a couple things. They leveraged managed services. They didn't have to worry about that underlying infrastructure, right? They didn't have to worry about that middleware integration. And another important point is that the architecture was entirely serverless, right? So I could have the same baseline, whether it's a pilot, which is how it started, and use that same baseline and deploy it into production, and it scales automatically, right, to meet that mission, right? So that's an important accelerator to the cloud. And then the last point, from a cost perspective, it was affordable, right? Something that we could do in a decentralized way. From a cost perspective, the bill for that was about $4,500 a month, right? So if you think about Washington, D.C. rent right now is probably about $4,500 a month. So it wasn't a huge investment up front to get this done. It was something that they could do in an economically feasible way. I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to give you an industry call to action, and then I'm going to transition over here to HC. But just as context, we are a 10-person team. We maintain these baselines. We maintain the ATOs. And then, as I said, we do a one-time deployment where we build out their environment, and then we hand them the keys, and then we walk away. Now, that's not enough, right? Department of Defense is huge. So to make this work and to scale this, we need industry buy-in and we need industry support. So if you're a professional services organization, you guys should be familiar with this baseline and how to tailor it and deploy it. In fact, I think in the future it's going to be a differentiator, right? The Department of Defense is going to look for companies that have experience, developing this and tailoring it and deploying this for customers. And the biggest thing is that it allows customers to focus on, again, what really matters and focus your efforts on what really matter, which is modernizing DoD by getting apps and data into the cloud and not building the same platform again and again. And I'm going to transition now to HC.
Great presentation. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces here today. And just want to say, continued service, wouldn't be here today without partnership from our vendors here today. And potential partnership with DevSecOps will rely heavily on some of the vendors that's here today. So appreciate you being here today. And okay. And I just wanted to start with a question, right? How many of you folks here run containers today or planning to run containers? Can you raise your hand? Great. A lot of you guys. But to help folks that doesn't understand containers, let's start with the basis, right? What is a container and what does the container app looks like? Really, at a basis, you're looking at the software, the underlying library, and the code and configuration, all in one bundle, right? So what's great about that is for us, DoD and app owner, to be able to have a consistent state to run across any platform, right, or any environment that we choose to. So it's really powerful and a tremendous value add for the warfighters. So that portability aspect is important, right? So we understand now a little bit about containers. So what is containers as a service here, right? So this is a really, really exciting offering that this host and compute centers are planning to introduce to the masses, right, to the DoD, to the DISA. So really exciting opportunities, right? We heard Largo mention earlier, this is the gateway or the stairway to cloud adoptions, right? As our hack director, Sharon Woods, mentioned yesterday in the directors panel, our warfighters are not just in one place, right? We're not in data center, we're not in the cloud, we're everywhere, right? In CONUS or at the tactical edge, right? So how do we have that portability across different environment? That's gonna be a key, right, to solve. So I think containerizations of an application can help solve that transportability, right, across different environment. So something very important for our warfighters, right, to be able to support our warfighter, that is the key, right? And this is a modernization to DevSecOps, right? We're really moving that continuous integration to the left, do the hardening piece, right, DevSecOps piece. That's really important for old folks here today that we hear about, right? How do we do our proper CI/CD, right? Containers allows you to do that with code, right? With GitOps process, the management. I'm not going to be too technical this, but we can answer you after hours, right? That DevOps process. This is very, very important. And one aspect of containers as a service is cost saving, right? If we did an assessment, if you look at a virtualization today, right, it's heavy, right? You have your OS, you have your underlying software, and it's not a consistent state across the board, right? So really, we're looking at 39% saving across the board when you move to containers, and also help us as a host and compute platform for the warfighter to save footprint, right? Looking at, consolidate those hardware to a containerized platform that be able to run container at a smaller footprint, right? So that's an additional value add for us, right? And a lot of the security aspect could be managed through a CI process, right? Continuous integrations, so that we're not constantly patching, doing the management, right? So those are all the value add that you get from moving to containers. And this is a really exciting offering that we'll be introducing, right? And I wanted to kind of highlight the achievement that we've done, right, thus far. And I think it's important that if you look at how we started, General Skinner had mentioned, would it be cool if we have a minimal viable product in 6 months, right? And this is how we started back in October. Shauna Martin, who's not here today, she's our product owner. She had an idea, what if we can take our existing hardware and turn that into containerizations, right? So this is exactly what we did. So our foundation, our infrastructure technologies is based off Red Hat OpenShift. Who's here today? Great help from the folks here in Red Hat. Matt Perrone, and really kind of built that infrastructure out, at scale to support the DoD, right? In parallel, there's other activity that's going on, right? How do I containerize a VM and a DoD traditional application like a time attendant application, right? A lot of you heard of ATAPs, right? That's how a civilian put in timesheets, right? So we're able to containerize that app, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, it's easy, to containerize a VM, right? It's not. The journey takes a while. But there are some lessons learned that we can share with the broader audience, right? So it's very critical to kind of have that foundation in place where DISA, right, are modernizing our portfolio and their solutions, right? So continuous development, kind of harness the power of continuous integration and continuous deployment. I think that's the critical piece, right, to modernize, in terms of our offering, right? So we've done a lot of that, right? So today, I'm happy to announce that we have a phase 1 completed, right, for ATAP training web server. If you hit a URL in Nipper today, it actually pulls up the containerized app today. So we have a demo at our booth that we can show you, right? It's pretty awesome. And the CI/CD pipeline piece is actually working behind the scenes, right, to do the deployment. So in collaboration with Red Hat, I think a lot of goodness could be learned from the vendors, right? As we scale this, there's partnership on the continuous integration piece that we'll try to keep bolting on and improve, right, through iterations. Some of the things that we're anticipating, right? We want to be able to signal, see what the demands are out there, especially with Windows, right? We know DoD is not just Linux. We have our workload that runs on Windows as well. So we want to be able to anticipate the demand and support them in Q3 2022, as well as database containers, right? So right now, if you move your data to the cloud, right, or anywhere else, for databases, what are the most critical point, right? It's your data, right? How fast is your disks, right? So on-premise give you that capability to support those fast disks. So we want to be able to anticipate that demand to have that persistent storage, right? And that tied into the NetApp folks that is hosting this session today. And we're fine-tuning the ordering process as well, so we have a web UI to kind of let the mission partner pick and choose which offering you want to select and go forward, and we can provision out the environment. I just wanted to end with really appreciate the collaboration between all the vendors who are here today, or the mission partners, and we are looking for pilots. If you look at your seat, there's a card with containers as a service. Contact us. You could be on the wait list for our potential pilot and to help containerize your app. Next slide, please. And here are some of the information about us, and the QR code you can scan to contact us. DoD Cloud IAC up top, containers as a service. And any question you have, that's a direct link. And I think we're ready for technical questions, right? Thank you.
Not sure how we're doing this.
Hi, Dave Spencer from U.S. Navy, PEO MLB Tech Director. Has anybody in the Navy started using the CloudFormation templates and Azure Blueprints? Who can you say?
We try not to publicly identify the list, but there's big ones. If you can reach out to me, I'll give you the list. But there are several big customers that you'll be aware of. Yep, thanks.
Hey, HC, great job. David Thomas, F5, Engine X. Can you talk a little bit about two questions? Modernizing legacy applications and containerizing those for microservices capabilities. And then what needs to happen to pull a pilot off? Like, what's the process there? Thank you.
Yeah. So we're any application has layers of dependencies, right? We want to do a proper assessment for the applications, and typically we'll conduct a technical exchange, right, to see what the application functionality is at a holistic view, right? So really, the network connectivity and ingress egress traffic, right, really have to figure out those dependencies first, right, before we can say, hey, is this application worth containerizing, right, or just leave it at VM, right, or just there's other method that you can do, right? So it's use case by use case, but we take assessment approach first to see if this application, could be containerized at first, right? So, and which we've done with ATAPs successfully. So, and I know a lot of future partnership will occur on the ingress egress that we speak of, right, with F5s and Engine X. So that's something to look forward to as part of the portfolio offering with containers as a service. Thank you. It doesn't have to be a technical question, so if anybody have anything.
Hey HC, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Hey, what about cost savings when it comes to containerizing? What can we expect?
Yeah, so I think with on average compared to a VM, like I stated, right? So, you'll be paying, up to 39%. You'll be saving 39% on average, right? So it's a tremendous cost saving for the mission partners, right? So I think it's important when you're looking at building an app, instead of building it one way, take a look at containers, right? How we can help for the hosting effort. Thank you.
So I have a question. We talk a lot about CATO and moving in that direction. It's pretty difficult with traditional infrastructure. Actually, for both of you, can you tell us the advantages that the IAC templates or container services could bring with regards to ultimately achieving CATO and what that looks like?
So CATO is ultimately a decision of your AO. So it's your AO's perspective on that. That is largely a process thing less than it is a implementation. But I will tell you that the IAC templates do have that ATO and those common controls, and so they are recognized from DISA RME. There is no such thing as a DoD-wide ATO, right? The local AO has that decision. But the closest thing to it is one from DISA RME. So that's what we have today. Sure. So continuous monitoring, it's a different paradigm in the cloud, and I think that's something that DoD is getting used to. But there are policies that you have to lock down your environment, right? And all the cloud providers, have them, whether it's Azure policy or AWS config rules. Google has their equivalent. That are rules that make sure that your environment is locked down, and they have dashboards where you can see, your compliance against that. And in fact, we have a proof of concept where we're sending that information, in real time to EMAS, right? So that's definitely part of the story.
And I think that's important to highlight, right? So Mr. Greenwell and Ms. Sharon Woods talked about it in the directors panel, right? How do we provide that continuous assessment for our environment? It's very critical today, right? Whether that's cloud or on-premise, or OCONUS or tactical edge, right? So how do we achieve that? I think there's potential, synergy with both IAC and containers as a service to achieve that, right? Especially with container as a service, we're able to provide that CI to the left, right? Shifting that security hardening to the left, right? Figuring out what needs to be hardened, right? Working closely with Red Hat, right, with the STIG process, and we're pulling stuff, partnership with Air Force, Iron Bank, right? It's critical for us to have that security piece figured out, and then to provide the mission partners.
Hey, HC. Quick question. So you talked a little bit about some of the benefits from mentioning storage specifically and some of the speeds. This is instantiating a really modern cloud-like experience on-prem, but yet still has the portability to go to the cloud or to the edge, as you mentioned. But what are some that maybe you could talk about, some of the advantages you see of running that workload on-prem? I know you can get some performance advantages. You mentioned some things with storage in particular, but just any words that you may have around that, giving mission partners the options, right, to deploy where they need to.
Yeah, 100%. So if you want to go back to that slide, the Largo had one before the Blue Heron one. Just one before. Yep. So I think one of the benefit for just like any service, right? The underlying storage, server, storage, and networking are all covered, right? So you don't have to go and figure it out how I can route my application, do NIPR, right? That stuff is already figured out for you. You have a DNS name that's already associated with the routable within the DoD, right? So the networking piece is already figured out for you. So the storage piece, fast, you get fiber channel storage, right, as part of the offering already, right? So you don't have to pick which level of storage that I want. You get the best off the bat, right? And that's all built into our competitor rate. Very comparable to the cloud rate, right? As well as cluster patching, right? So I know the cloud vendors offers managed service that already does automatic patching, and we'll be providing that as well. So I think it's very competitive towards the cloud offering, the CSPs as well. So that and we're not in the business for competition, right? So if folks want to port that containers over to Google or AWS, they can do that, right? And that's why we have a partnership with Dave Largo. His blueprint or his baseline has those already built in, right, as part of the design, right, infrastructure as code. So that portability can occur based on the demand, based on what the warfighter's at.
And I'll just add, Hack Leadership really stresses there's no one solution, right? So it really depends on the mission partner and where they feel most comfortable. Would they rather be on-prem? Would they rather be in the cloud or a hybrid offering?
Is the Kubernetes part of your service, like EKS or AKS?
Yeah, it's based off a CNCF. So the underlying technology foundations are OpenShift. So yeah, it is Kubernetes. Yeah, the orchestrator.
And then on the IAC background, we have Elastic Kubernetes service from AWS. We have Azure Kubernetes service, and then we have Google Container Engine. which are Kubernetes based.
That's what makes it portable, right? That common Kubernetes API.
Yes, sir.
My stuff is hosted at DISA Enclave now. If we were to go to the cloud, I know I utilize the benefits of Splunk, ACAS, all that kind of stuff. How will that work in the cloud? Is it done the same way? And how do we get updated?
Yeah, so the baselines for IAC leverage the tools, the CSP native tools. So it wouldn't be Splunk. It would be things like Azure Sentinel, right? Azure Defender, things like that. The native tooling that exists there. Although we have customers who take it, and you can also connect to an existing SCCA. If you want the more traditional tools. But our baselines are around kind of what's coming from the cloud providers.
So not really a question, but more of a comment. So I am with IndoPACOM. We are a customer for the DISA host and compute, and just want to share some of our experience, which is pretty awesome.
Come up to the stage.
So one of the things that help benefit us as a customer using a DISA host and compute is we were able to leverage their ATO for basically everything from runtime, middleware, OS, virtualization, server storage, and network. And we're doing a hybrid authorization. All we did was we leveraged industry talent to build an application, and we're doing the application and storage at IndoPACOM. Currently, my application is still going through the accreditation process on our end, but they saw that 80% of the accreditation has already been done on the DISA side. So normally accreditation takes about 18 months. For us, we're looking at hopefully getting it in 3 months time based off of that support. And also just for the application that we built, we actually run more of a software as a service leveraging their basically containerized environment, and they handle the middleware. We procured the license through industry. We sent it over to them, and they support us with all that effort too.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yep. Thank you for that use case, Paul.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom Kopko at CyberArk. My question is if you could talk a little bit more about identity and authorizing and deauthorizing regular users, privileged users, and how that works with the current CAC systems and everything else. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think Lago had mentioned during his brief, there are two type of authentications, right? So authentication, auth Z, right, at the application level, right? And auth Z at the portal, right, where you log in, right? So what IAC baseline supports is the authentications, right? Not so much the authorization piece, right, auth-in piece, right, but the authentication at the global directory level, right? So we use SAML, OpenID that bolt into a global directory identity provider, right? So that's GFUD, the ICAM solution, all share that same underlying identity providers. So that's already part of the baseline today they can use, but the authorization piece is going to be something that the mission partner will have to configure. And for the containers of service portion, I think we're still figuring out how we want to do the RBAC, working with the vendors and how we want to support that, Red Hat HPE, and how we want to support that. But it's very integrated into global directory today.
And if I could add, so we're not from the ICAM program, but you can certainly reach out to them. But it is if you're not familiar with it, it is a federated model, right? So we are federating up with the IDPs and the military services and everything. So I think it depends on that user you're adding. Are you adding them, in the military service, or are you adding it from DISA? It would depend on on that of where they get entered in. But they are rapidly modernizing and getting a process, getting more mature about how they onboard and all that.
Hey, Roberto Estrada, GDIT. So first, been working with Ecosystem, now Hack, for many years. So thank you for all the services there. Container as a service would have been great for us in the program that we were doing, which you guys were around like about a year or so ago. So I think it's great. I had a question in that area. So since I have that background, curious of maybe if you're there yet, what visibility do you give to your mission partners that are hosting services with you around the health of the services and possibly like posture, scanning?
Yeah. So I think as you see, the CSPs are when you provision a cluster within Google AWS today, there's a whole concept of observability, right, around Kubernetes, right? So I think at the cluster level, we're looking to offer the Red Hat's built-in tools within OpenShift, right? We want to provide that visibility to the customer at the cluster level. At the application level, I think there's opportunities for different operators that provide a service mesh type of whether that's Istio, right? That provides like application insight, right? You can see sort of an east and west movement between the pods, right? And be able to provide that at the pod level, right, to the mission partners, right? So those are the things I would look at, right? But off the bat, I think the cluster management, right, the health of the cluster, the health of the namespace will be provided to the customer. So very similar to how the CSPs are observability for the cluster today, right? So we want to have that self-service mentality where the mission partner can look at the health of the cluster, the pods, all across the board within the applications, right? And there's additional tools that we're working within the OpenShift environment, Advanced Cluster Security, that gives you insight into the path of the networking, right? So that's something that we can provide to the mission partner to give additional insight to the movement or behavior analysis of the pods, right? So it's exciting, and we'll be implementing that down for our roadmap. And Roberto, good to see you, and we support the ICAM effort as well as part of hosting Compute Center. Thank you.
All right.
All right. I think if there are no more questions, Dave and HC will be around to answer questions, and we have a hack booth just over here in the DISA area, so please stop by and see us. Thank you.